Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be with you. I'm very excited for this conversation. I want to start with just a little bit of an introduction, and that is that in our United Way, in our community, we essentially do one thing, and that is focus on cradle to career infrastructure, helping every child succeed every step of the way. We do that using a cradle to career framework. You can look at the next slide or advance this slide, please. This is probably common to everybody, but our early childhood work sits within this construct where our goal is to try to help every child from birth start school ready to learn and then help them succeed through that set of milestones onto a post-secondary completion and a stable career. We do this by building an infrastructure. If you advance one slide, please. That infrastructure we think of as kind of a layer or a tiered infrastructure that works to try to connect with individual families through 211 and through a grassroots engagement strategy that builds partnerships at the school and the community level, and then that unites the system and institutional leaders of our community around a shared set, the same shared set of metrics. We call this the Promise Partnership Infrastructure. And if you advance the next slide, it's over the years, it's grown to be pretty robust. It's been significantly helpful in advancing those outcomes. But early on, back in 2010, 2011, our answer to the policy environment question in our state was maybe this, there was some interest, and I would say it wasn't much interest, and it wasn't very strong interest, at least in terms of state policymakers. Utah was a state that at the time did not invest any resources in preschool or childcare, state level resources. And obviously that lack of investment, the lack of a policy framework to support early childhood education is a pretty significant barrier to helping every child start school ready to learn. In fact, at the time, we didn't have a statewide measure to know whether every child was starting school ready to learn, if they were kindergarten ready when they got there. So as we thought about how to tackle this problem, we came upon this idea. One of our local partners, local advocacy organization focused on children, Voices for Utah Children, had a really brilliant staff member at the time who said, we ought to try this idea of pay for success financing or a social impact bond, even though it's not technically a bond, where we know that the investments in high quality early childhood will save the state money down the road. And why don't we try to do this? And so we went to our legislature in 2013 and said, let's make a relatively small investment in a really high quality preschool program that has really good longitudinal data, and see if it works. And if it works, actually this was 2012 when we went to our state and asked them to do this outside of this framework. And because there was such limited support for childcare and early childhood education, we did not see any progress in 2012. In 2013, we went back with this idea, this pay for success idea. And that maybe it was a little too new. We didn't get enough support to get it done, but we figured out after our legislative session was over how to get started. And so we started this pay for success structure with 6 providers, with a private investment from Goldman Sachs. Let's go back one slide still. Goldman Sachs and JB Pritzker, and we just got started. We did that for a year. It was a pilot. The investment was being paid back by United Way and by Salt Lake County, a local government entity that got on board early on, and it was super promising. We were able to pull people together and get going. With the expectation that once we showed our state legislature that this could work and continue to do the education about the importance of childcare and the importance of early childhood education, that we could build support for this. So we got started in 2013. In 2014, we were able, to pass that legislation. If we go to the next slide, that legislation passed in 2014. It was the first pay for success or social impact bond transaction for education or for preschool. And it got started that year. It was a 5-year, four more years. So starting 2013 through 2018, that got started. But what it did, in addition to immediately putting 600 kids into this high quality program in 2013, and I should say that 2 of the providers were specifically chosen as childcare providers. So we did not design this simply to work in a public preschool setting, for example. We sought out private childcare providers and built them into this model, and initially added 600 kids. The next year added 750. The next year added 1,000, and we just grew from there. The short version of that whole story is that project has continued to be successful. It is repaying our investors. Our state has benefited dramatically by reduced costs associated with the lack of early childhood education. And the kids who are in that program are, in fact, performing better than comparable kids or from comparable communities, and are on par in many ways, reading and math, with kids who didn't need those same kind of supports. What we didn't anticipate when we first started was how transformational this was. Our state, Utah, again, went from being a state where the policy environment was not welcoming at all to early childhood education in 2011, 2012, that barely was willing to talk about it in 2013, that finally took the step of testing it in 2014, to 2 years later, being able to make a substantially higher investment in preschool. And that investment went statewide and was not tied to pay for success financing. It was simply tied to a set of quality metrics. And every year since then, our legislature has taken awesome progressive steps towards building a better early childhood environment in Utah. And it's now the case that there really isn't much debate about the importance of childcare and early childhood education. It's sort of, that's the starting point. It's known that it's important. Over the years, we've gone from 0 state investment to now more than $60 million. When this slide was made prior to our legislative session, it was 57. Along the way, we were able to institute a statewide kindergarten readiness assessment without drama. That had been stalled for years prior to that. And so this effort to change the policy environment taught us that it's possible to do. We still have a lot more work in Utah to do to get to every child that needs it. And we also know, and if you go to the next slide, we know that the policy environment, the state investments, and all of that infrastructure is super important, but it's become quite clear that we need to just be better at bringing parent voice to the table about all of this. And so what we're focused on now, in addition to changing policies, is making sure that we're working directly with parents, bringing them into the conversation about early childhood, about its importance, that we're doing screenings for kids long before they get to preschool, and trying to join a really bottom-up effort with a top-down effort at the same time. Let me stop there. Look forward to questions later on. Thank you.